Hey everyone, Frank with IceAge Performance, and today we're going to talk about our keyed offset axle design and compare it to our older offset axle and how this keyed offset axle is used with our big wheel kits, our 9-inch HELLFIRE billet wheels, and what makes it better than our previous version. There's nothing wrong with this one, it just had a little bit of room for improvement, and we're going to highlight those features in this video today and show you what we've done to make this a lot better for the consumer. What we have here, obviously, like I said, our old version and our new keyed offset axle. And the difference is going to be the keyed feature that we have on the axle. So traditionally, you would tighten your offset blocks and they might spin when you final torque them. This has a keyed feature on the center part of the axle and another one on the offset block. So they click together and you can tighten this inner bolt and it doesn't spin. This allows you to completely assemble your big wheel kit on the workbench and it'll align perfectly in the adjuster slots of your suspension. You don't need to pull it in and out to align to those adjuster slots like you had previously. You can just assemble it completely on the workbench and it'll fit perfectly in those adjuster slots. We're gonna put one together here, and helps to take these bolts with the washers off the axle. Using a 15, we'll remove those bolts. This is pretty much how you'll receive it in our packaging. Now we'll put the wheel on, and we like to put the laser engraving facing out and these screw heads facing in. They aren't directional wheels by any means, but we prefer it this way for aesthetic reasons and urge our customers to do the same. Now the wheels are on the axle. Depending on your model, you may be included an additional pair of washers. If you have those, they would go on next. If you don't have those, you can move on to these spacer sleeves, which everyone will have in their kit, no matter your make or model. Then the offset block. We'll just get a couple threads started on these. We don't need to align them quite yet. And thanks to the key design, we can put these blocks on and they won't spin. So you can see they're not spinning. They may come off the key and they'll spin around like that, but you can put these on, align them on each side, and then tighten them on the workbench and they'll fit, again, perfectly in your adjuster slots. So what I like to do is get one side on, flip it vertically, so that way gravity helps keep it in place, and then we'll tighten this inner bolt and then come back with a final torque at 55 foot-pounds. Give it a final look and make sure both offset blocks are aligned. Kind of hold it in place and flip it vertically again. That way gravity helps to keep it in place. And now we'll do a final torque on it at 55 foot-pounds, but this is fully assembled on the workbench and these offset blocks are perfectly aligned. So traditionally what would happen is if we take a look at our old design that was, it's basically the same thing, just missing that keyed feature. When you tighten these inner bolts, it'll just spin a little bit if you assemble it on the workbench. So oftentimes customers, or even builds here in the shop, we would need to take it in and out of the suspension to get it aligned properly. And we'll demonstrate kind of what happens. We'll get one side tight here. So that's snug, and we'll give it our best eye. That's pretty much aligned right there. And then we'll tighten this up. And when we tighten it, this offset it'll spin a little bit. So you can see on a flat surface it rocks a little bit. So that won't align perfectly in your adjuster slots. You'd have to kind of take it in and out or do a final torque in the suspension. So great axle, but again, there's room for improvement. With the key design, we can now assemble it on the workbench. Everything is clocked correctly, and we can torque it and put it right in the suspension. No frills, makes it super easy and ensures proper torque on those inner bolts. Now we're going to do the final torque before we put it in the suspension. Using a 7/8 wrench, we're going to hold this wrench flat here just to get a good grip on the axle, and then this inner bolt gets torqued to 55 foot-pounds. Same on the other side, holding that wrench flat, and again 55 foot-pounds. So now both of these inner bolts are completely torqued. No need for a final torque. Once it's in the machine, it's ready to go, and these will be aligned perfectly because of that key. Now we're gonna get the suspension up on the workbench here and put it into position and show you a couple more tricks. We're doing it this way for demonstration purposes. You can leave the skid in your snowmobile as well, but this helps to really show what we're doing. A tech tip for you is loosening the cross shaft and or the rear scissor arm bolt depending on the model that you have. Since this isn't a model specific install, you may not have one or the other, but loosening a cross shaft or a rear scissor arm bolt will allow us to pull the rails apart and put the assembled big wheel kit into position without wrestling more than we have to. So just loosen up these bolts. You don't need to take them out, just loosen it. Same with the scissor arm. And now the rails will have enough slack where we can get this in and not wrestle too much. And because of the key design, we're able to put this right into position. It's aligned perfectly in the adjuster slot there. And one important note is to make sure that your axle is oriented correctly. And a big wheel kit with the offset axle is going to relocate the center point from there forward and up. So you're going to want to make sure that your axle is positioned in that fashion. If it's not, it likely won't go in the machine, or you'll have some other fitment issues. So you'll know pretty quick whether or not it's correct. And we'll take our outer bolts and put those in. Same with this side, just get it finger tight first. These are both applied, or all the bolts are applied with Loctite, so they're ready to roll. And I like to leave this washer loose, so get these tight enough where the washer still spins, and that way it can move forward and back in the adjuster slot. And a tech tip that I encourage our customers to do is loosen up your tensioner bolts. So, get rid of all your track tension, and what that's going to allow you to do is put this axle all the way forward in the adjuster slots and give you the most slack and make it a lot easier to get the big wheel kit in or the skid back into the track if you've pulled it like we have. If the axle is all the way back like that, that's going to be the tightest track tension and make it really difficult to get back into position. So going to want to put it all the way forward, get it into the track, basically everything installed, and then you'll have to redo your track tension. So either marking where it was previously or doing the track tension with a tool. There's a couple different methods to do it, but you will need to do a final track tension on it. And then we'll torque these to 55 foot-pounds once the machine is, the track is tensioned and everything is good to go. So that's pretty much the install for the big wheel kit. It's really straightforward. If you want to pull your skid, we have videos on that. Otherwise, you can do it in your suspension. And for disassembly, depending on the snowmobile you're putting it underneath, you will need different tools than what we use today, obviously. But that's pretty much it. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to help, so give us a call or shoot us an email. Otherwise, thanks again for watching.